Rev up your engines! Here we have an infamous 2015 Ford Focus. And yes, it is the one that has the dual clutch automatic transmission that Ford has to either fix or replace the car. Let's see how this one has held up over time. Now, the man's smart. This is his secondary car he bought used. He has a Toyota Corolla that's his regular driver. So he's not putting too many miles on this thing. It's only got 55,949 miles. So it's low mileage. He bought it used. He's just done the usual oil change, brake pads. He hasn't had any real problems because it's low mileage. Now, well, he likes the fact that it gets upper 30s miles per gallon on a highway, but he doesn't like the transmission, the way it shifts. Now, it's never stranded him, but that's the problem with those dual clutch transmissions, is you get great gas mileage, but often it's hunting for gears. So it feels weird because if you're at a certain speed, it'll try to go down and up and try to equilibrate to get the best gas mileage versus power. He doesn't like the feel of it. Now, they did have class action suit for a bunch of years. You can look it up, and this one is actually covered, but only for so many years and so many miles. And this one, they wouldn't do anything because it's working as it normally should. It doesn't have a particular problem other than the weird shifting. The thing that people need to understand about these dual clutch transmissions is this. Talk about overkill engineering. It's got a whole fulcrum, and I mean, they really got carried away with this thing, even though it's all plastic. The dual clutch transmission, it's an automatic transmission, you don't shift it, but actually it is, as it said, dual clutch. It's got two clutches in it, like a standard transmission. And instead of you shifting it, the computer uses solenoids to activate the clutches, so it shifts itself. But it's basically an automatic standard transmission. Eventually, the clutches will and do wear out. And when they do, you can't have Billy Bob at the corner gas station putting a new clutch in because the computer has to compensate for wear as it wears out. When it's worn out, you put a new clutch in. The whole thing has to be reprogrammed on a road test with some very high-level Ford scan tools in order to get the new one to shift right. So some of the problems that they've had are because they're not repaired correctly. I've seen this over and over again. Guys will put clutches in, they won't work right, and I said, well, did you reprogram it? And they're like, what do you mean? We put clutches in. I said, well, it's got to be all reprogrammed. Some of the problems are basically because they're so complex technologically and requiring reprogramming that repairs are often done incorrectly, and then they get kind of a bad rap that maybe they didn't actually deserve themselves. Take, for example, some of the people's complaints of later model Toyota automatic transmissions. They'll say, I don't like the way it feels, right? And I say, they're trying to get the best gas mileage out of that setup. So it does feel weird at certain speeds when you're kind of in between. Is it going to third gear, fourth gear? What's it doing? And people don't like that feel. The Toyotas don't break down, they don't strand you, and unlike these, they don't require all kinds of reprogramming and stuff. It's just a design to get better gas mileage. It feels a little bit weird, but people still complain like mad. I didn't like that Toyota transmission, you know. I like the old 4-speed that didn't have all those problems, that was solid. Some of the complaints on these are warranted, the ones that actually broke down the road, and some of them aren't. But of course, when the law gets involved, as it did with Ford and these, they lost the suit, and their solution was they either have to fix the trannies if they're broken or buy the car back. And they said, well, they'd pay between $2,000 and $25,000 to buy the cars back, right? Well, every single customer of mine that had a high mileage one with the broken tranny, they said, hey, well, we don't want the car, buy it from us. They didn't offer them $25,000. They offered them $2,500, almost all of them. So when lawyers are involved, they certainly get their pay, but you as a consumer usually get screwed over because they didn't even have any kind of a chart that said this has to pay this much, this, that much. It was up to the dealer to pay whatever they want, and guess what? They're going to pay the lowest they possibly could. And I still haven't been able to find out what happened to the ones they did buy back. Like, did they ship them to Romania or something and sell them there? No one ever gave any information of what they actually did with the vehicles. Like, when I was in Houston, they had the big Hurricane Harvey. There were old racetracks full of flooded out cars, and they were marked for parts sales only, not for resale. They were honest on that. But hey, if they sold hundreds of thousands of these things each year, what happens to the ones they buy back? I would love to know. If anybody out there knows, please email me, scottykilmer@gmail.com, and tell me, hey, here's what happens to these cars. If you work for Ford or you work for a place that buys them, tell me, because I'd love to know what happened to the ones they did actually buy back. I mean, did they just put them on their lots and sell them to other people? I don't know. I'd love to know. So in the case of this one, with the low mileage, it's a little bit odd. We'll show you when we take it for a road test, but he's not having any particular problems with it. He gets good gas mileage. The only other complaint he's got is a very interesting sparkling paint job, but the clear coat is starting to come off over here, which I advised them to buff it all down really good and then wax the heck out of it, maybe put some ceramic coating on it. Do that a few times so that it won't bubble the clear coat. Some guys will re-clear coat them, but it's pretty hard to get an even coat. I mean, if you're good with one of those little touch-up airbrush kits, some guys can do a little section. It'll look exactly the same because it is a clear coat. It's not the actual paint that's underneath the clear coat. But that's the only real complaint he has. You can see the body's still in good shape. So is the interior. So let's start her up. Starts right up. And you can see the interior. Hey, it's still clean. It's an economy car, but it's got room in the back seat. 4 doors. Real tiny backup camera, but nevertheless it has one. And for peace of mind, we'll go through a scan and see what kind of shape it's in. In this case, it's hiding behind this little cover. No one knows why, but they hid it there. Strange ideas people have. Plug it in, and we'll turn it on. Here we go. Let's see if there's any codes or anything. Charging good, 14.93. There's no trouble codes, okay? So, we'll go to live data. So, there's no trouble codes. Let's start looking at stuff. And I gotta say, this Autel scanner is pretty good. It shows you the value, then shows you the normal range it's supposed to be in. Long-term fuel trim, all right, minus 0.8. So it's subtracting a very tiny amount of fuel, so that is a very good reading. Airflow sensors right on, right around 2. Now you can see the fuel rail pressure is high. It's normal because this has a high pressure fuel system on it. One of the reasons it can get such good gas mileage. We're looking at all the onboard monitors, and as you can see, they are all okay. This thing is running perfectly. Keep going, they're all okay. If there was something wrong, the scan tool is good because you can find out what's wrong by looking at the monitor test. It's always doing the monitor test. It's got pretty good software, I gotta say. You can't argue that. They are complex vehicles, the way they're set up with these high pressure fuel systems, but at least the analytics, if you have a machine like this, are there so you can actually figure out what's wrong rather than just guessing. Now, before we take for a spin, these are international cars. The Ford Focus really was a European design, but this particular one was made in the United States, and you can tell that. There are a lot of stuff hiding. It just says, you know, manufactured by Ford, but you look at the VIN number. It starts with a 1. 1 means it was made in the United States. Now for an economy car, he paid about 10 grand for this car used. You can feel the transmission jiggle. That's what people don't like, is they are kind of jiggly transmissions. They get great gas mileage, but there you can feel it there. It hunts between gears when it's trying to get the best gas mileage. Now, on the one hand, little car, corners quite well. And for a little car, it's not particularly noisy. I mean, I can hear the wheels and stuff because there isn't much insulation, but not that bad. But we'll take it to the little drag strip and see how the little engine works with this transmission. So you can feel the jiggle right there again. People just don't like it. There's that jiggle again. You can feel it jiggling. Like I say, it's not hurting anything, but it's a feel that a lot of people don't like. All right, here we come. Come to a little stop. We see there's nobody behind us. Wild kind of mirror setup. I like that. Here we go. Ooh, it spun the tires. Not really all that bad acceleration. It's relatively quick for a little car. That's one of the reasons they sell so well in Europe. The Europeans like the fancier version, souped up. They'll put turbos on them. They'll have a standard transmissions to have even better acceleration. But really, when you consider you step on the gas, it accelerates. It's not a dog. The transmission does leave much to be desired in terms of shifting smoothness, yes, but it works and it gets, you know, he was getting 37 miles a gallon coming over here, so you can't argue that. It's actually kind of a fun little car to drive around. I mean, look, the guy only paid 10 grand for the thing. It's got less than 50,000 miles when he bought it. All these tiny screens and stuff. Heck, you can always put an Android in. And being a small car, it turns around real fast. We just turned around and headed back. And of course, if you baby it and don't accelerate it, the transmission is a lot smooth. When you really dump it, you can feel a little kind of slippage and stuff. But really, Hey, for the gas mileage that it gets, it's not a race car, and they stopped selling them in the United States because Ford wants to make a lot of money selling trucks and SUVs. They still sell them in Europe, though they say something like 2025 they're going to stop selling them because of Europeans' emissions, and they're going to electric cars, blah, blah, blah. But, hey, actually, they're not that bad of a car, other than if you're really hard on transmissions, you will wear these out faster, and hardly anybody knows how to fix it. That's a Ford, so it's got a little wind noise. He put one of these wind noise restrictors, which quieted some of it down, but I can still hear wind noise. And it's kind of fun driving around on these twisties. Oh, look. Whee! I'm not even slowing down here. It is a fun little car to drive around, I gotta say. It was European inspired, and they're more into handling than Americans are usually. And they're more into smaller cars, too. They're still selling an awful lot of these in Europe. And really, you can get used to that transmission after driving it a while. It does kind of a motorboat overrun at times, but still works fine. Yeah, the transmission feels weird, but it works good enough. Pretty zippy, it handles quite well. Decent looking car. I like that weird paint job that it has on it. It's just that Ford's decided we're not in the car business anymore. We're going to sell trucks and SUVs, and we're going to sell electric cars. Hey, wishful thinking there. Let's see how that works out. Now, of course, you can't buy new ones. They don't sell them over here anymore. They still sell them in Europe, and the Europeans are kind of gaga on these things. On the other hand, if you look at it when it's got 150,000 miles, I probably wouldn't even go look at it. I'd say, that's too many mileage for those, unless they had proof that Ford had already replaced the transmission, because they have replaced a lot of transmissions in these things. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.